Hey, Gregory, can you hear me?
Hey, Dave, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, hear you just fine. Welcome, Jeancarlo. I sent you a invite, and Sam as well sent you an invite. Gregory, it sounds like you're in the car. You gonna be okay to chat?
I sure hope so.
Yeah, sounds good. Awesome. Well, let's get started. Welcome, everybody, to the monthly Regenerati News Hour. We're here to jam on the imminent Regen Ledger upgrade. Lots of exciting work's been going into that, led by our community for quite some time now, kind of squashing bugs and getting dev nets and test nets set up, and heralds kind of a new day over at Regen for Regen Ledger. And so we're going to talk about the implications of that, the process. We have Sam here, our director of product and registry systems. We have Jeancarlo, a longtime community member who's been leading the community charge on this. But maybe, Gregory, I'll start with you. It's spring in the Berkshires. How is it looking over there? What's popping in your forest these days? And maybe draw us a little closer to the land before we get into the zeros and ones.
All right. Hi, everybody. Nice to see familiar faces. I'm not going to be able to, Dave, just so you know, I'm not going to be able to be retweeting. So maybe if everybody who's in the audience wants to just make sure to take an extra moment to throw this out into our various chats and, tweet threads and whatnot so that people know that we're chatting, that'd be great. It is rainy and cold here in New England. I'm driving through Connecticut on my way down to New York City right now. So I'm going down to the Accelerate conference. Going to go feel out the Solana community vibes and have a couple of meetings down in New York City with folks. So that's exciting. But right now, yeah, it's springtime, almost Memorial Day weekend, and it's like 40 degrees and pouring rain. So it's it's incredibly lush and green, but it is chilly. It's cold and it's wet, and it's been a cold, wet spring. So, um, what can I say? Things, things. It's still early. Here in New England, I don't plant my garden until probably, like 5th of June or something like that. So it's still that time of year where it kind of things could go either way.
Right on. Well, safe travels. Sam, I wanted you to say hello, and maybe Sam, you can, just kind of, you're out in the area of Montana, out in where I assume you're hopefully getting some late season skiing, or you're starting to see the signs of spring and summer. Give us an update. What's going on in the Rockies?
Yeah, it's there is a lot of skiing. It has been raining for the last like week and a half here in Bozeman, but that means that it's been dumping in the mountains. I'm actually pretty ready to not ski anymore. There's a lot of people here though that are just thrilled and going out every day. So yeah, for me, just really trying to focus on the garden, get the bike cleaned up, go on some hikes around town where it's a little bit more dry, and yeah. But my main focus has really been the garden and trying to get ready for the short growing season that we have here.
Word. And Giancarlo, maybe you can give us a weather update. Where are you in the world? And maybe kick us off, Giancarlo. You've been kind of leading the charge on this community upgrade to 0.47, and obviously we know it's been a journey to get there. But maybe you can tell us a little bit, kind of where we're at right now, and a little bit about the process and what you've learned.
Hey everybody. Currently I'm in the Guatemala area, in what's will be called like the Santa Rosa state, and we're actually going to see like a couple, uh, like an area of land where people are considering making a project with for agroforestry between cacao and coffee. So that's quite interesting. And regarding the weather is nice, a bit hot for me, but nice, like 70 degrees. Um, and regarding the upgrade is like quite good news. Right now, Vit is helping us. They have a testnet running. We have the final RC candidate being tested, uh, and I think the immediate action that like the immediate next step we need for like continuous process on it is hopefully getting like a group of anybody who's interested, community members who have used the platform before, and validators to start testing the new upgrade in the newest testnet that we have. So that's really good news. To remind everybody, in this upgrade, we will have Cosmos 4.7, which keeps us up to date, at least on the releases that are maintained. And Cosmo Wasm added to the platform as well. Multiple bug fixes. You guys can check the release notes or ask me anything about it. And and the main thing is like with Cosmo Wasm, there's also the most immediate use case for it. It would be DAO DAO that will be we're still discussing is going to come with the upgrade or is going to come immediately after, which is a very nice Cosmo Wasm contract to manage anything governance related and with a really nice user experience. Um, on other news, also there's a little bit of work being advanced for 5.0. Given that while things are being tested, we are trying to stay a bit like productive and trying to keep pushing. So there's also a branch that has initial work for the 5.0 upgrade that we will want to push, hopefully faster than this one. But yeah, that's pretty much the news. I don't know if anybody has any questions or anything about it.
Well, maybe, Gregory, can you help put into context? I mean, obviously, this has been something that I think we've all been excited, even maybe at the expense of time, that this be community led, as a, community governed ecological ledger, that the, validator and other community members help guide and bring 0.47 to the fore. So, maybe you could tell us a little bit for people who aren't, don't understand the philosophy, like why is it important? Why is it exciting for the community to be doing to be really the one at the forefront of this? And then maybe you could pivot over into a little bit about the significance of why this 0.47 upgrade is so important, to the community, for the future, and the value proposition of Regen Ledger.
Sure. Well, first off, I'm just super grateful. Can't be said enough for Jeancarlo and the whole crew that's been pitching in. But Jeancarlo has really been the rock this entire time, helping do the engineering and kind of just keep everything moving. So thank you, JC. And I think I'll answer this in two layers. So one layer that I think is, worth noting, as you mentioned, Dave, is just the philosophy and I think culture, and why it's important to have a broad community of people participating all the way down to running the hardware, but also contributing to the software that runs this distributed ecological ledger. So, to the degree to which we have a public open source software and a broad community of people engaging and deploying, this is what creates the highest degree of legitimacy and credibility, safety, security, and stability. Counterintuitively, I mean, maybe this goes without saying, but it's probably important to understand that the most secure cryptographic softwares in the world are open source and not closed source. And to have powerful open source software deployed and used broadly means that you do need a community of developers who engage with that. So that's sort of on the software side. talking about kind of maybe the market implications of achieving that, of having software that is and always has been run by a distributed set of validators, in which we have community governance, and in which independent community members have taken the lead to run a major upgrade. That also puts us in an entirely rarefied class of decentralization as a network that not even really Ethereum or Solana or even Bitcoin for that matter could say that they inhabit. All of the major, for the most part, with some exceptions, but all of the major blockchain projects really have one singular dev shop paid directly by a foundation to run major network upgrades. And of course, that makes things efficient and effective, and there's a lot to be said about that. I know that this has been a long, arduous process. But on the other hand, having an upgrade that was funded by the community through the community pool, that is run by an independent community member, Jeancarlo, and a group of validators, actually creates an incredible fact, which is that our network is fully, without a doubt, decentralized. And that has certain benefits in security and governance, as I already said, but also there's a strong belief that this fact leads to, I guess you might say, a radically different classification in regulatory regimes, right? One of the big questions in crypto is something a security? That is to say, essentially there's a single company that is responsible for stewarding the value of something. If so, then something is usually said to be a security via that Howey test. If something isn't managed by a single entity, but instead is truly managed by a diverse community that has checks and balances and control, or is, sort of a productive commodity, then it's no longer a security, and that has really big implications for the value, utility, programmability, and the ability for us to market, tell stories, and broader participation without fear of regulatory concerns. And so the fact that this has been fully community-led and funded is a massive, massive, massive milestone for Regen Network to cross, and I think unlocks a huge amount of potential once this network upgrade goes forward, just in the market culture and sort of regulatory fact pattern. And then the last layer that I want to talk about, and I'll probably pass it on very swiftly to Sam to talk in more detail about this, but this network upgrade is incredibly important because it's unlocking a huge amount of functionality. For the first time, we will have a robust developer experience for developing new decentralized applications and adopting one of the best governance decentralized applications, as JC mentioned, in CosmWasm, which is going to unlock a huge amount of utility and functionality for our existing application set. We've been getting lots of requests from our users about having multi-party project management and credit issuance processes, and I think I want to turn it over at this point to Sam to talk in a little bit more detail about all of the features that are going to be unlocked by having CosmWasm and specifically DAO DAO live on Regen Ledger.
Great, thanks, Gregory. So I think that the thing that at least at Regen Network Development we're most excited about is like Gregory mentioned, that with CosmWasm unlocked, now we can deploy DAO DAO. Unfortunately, Noah from the DAO DAO community couldn't be here, but he is quite excited to support us in deploying DAO DAO on the Regen chain and actually doing some custom work to help support better multi-stakeholder project management. And so, just to speak a little bit more to that use case, for a lot of our projects, whether it's in, crediting or grant reporting, or more kind of science focused, we typically have, a bunch of different individuals from multiple organizations that are all trying to contribute data and information to a project, that want to manage, credits, that want to manage finances, that want to be able to audit things in, that other people have contributed. And so, what we're actually going to be doing with DAO DAO is we're going to be using that as the backend to the Regen application to implement multi-stakeholder project management and organization features that essentially allows communities to define stakeholder roles for a project, to manage permissions of who can contribute data to that project, to specify what information should be verified and by who. And that's really going to support us in being able to more transparently track this kind of network process that drives project development and project management towards asset creation and other things. And so, what we're going to be doing within the app is we're going to be, tailoring a lot of the features that DAO DAO offers to kind of our immediate use cases around information uploading and verification. But the really cool thing that using DAO DAO unlocks is that, any one of these actions, whether it's attesting to information, uploading information, transferring credits, spending money from a community pool on certain elements of a project, can actually be customizably governed in any number of ways across those stakeholders. And DAO DAO's UI already offers a lot of really awesome tools for things like treasury management or custom, message type governance features, and actually like integration to other Cosmos-based applications, which is pretty cool. So, those are the things that we're really excited about kind of in our, immediate use case. And then on the, CosmWasm side, yeah, smart contracting allows anyone to deploy, custom features. In some of the use cases that I have in mind is just around credit sales. There's a lot of kind of like dashboards and information that buyers might want to see. There's bridging to other communities, which EcoToken has done a great job leading. And so now this unlocks the ability to just consume things like credits and, put them in games or, other sort of applications, as well as just post data to Regen Ledger in more creative ways. And I think that Dave is actually, I think Dave said that he was having technical issues. So I don't know if he's facilitating. Yeah, I think that I would love to hear kind of the experience, from Jeancarlo on your end, and I know that you do a lot of work, outside of just the development in thinking through different agroforestry use cases, working with different applications, and so I'm curious in kind of your purview, and then also the same to you, Gregory. Kind of if there's anything exciting moving in potential applications that you see for this immediate upgrade. And then I think afterwards, it'd also be really great to talk about, 0.50, 0.53, and how this is really kind of a stepping stone towards a greater set of tools around smart contracting and bridging with other EVM-based ecosystems.
Sure. Well, we like here in Guatemala, we've been trying to get a lot of kind of interest into how to use tools like Regen for people around. And like one of the main things that comes up is it's always governance and a place to do decision making. So sometimes it's even just for tracking. So one of the reasons I'm interested about DAO DAO is just like the ability to track governance decisions, uh, but also, for example, like communities that tend to be, not all communities are next to each other, but sometimes they interact within the same landscape. So here in Guatemala, there's like cooperatives and also like indigenous groups and also some local kind of farmers who do not really belong to the same culture within a specific landscape and the same space. So a place where they can take decisions together if they ever want to do a project together would be great. So something like DAO can greatly help for that. We're still facing a little bit the issue with user experience, but the reason what I like Cosmo Wasm is we can keep expanding it and kind of finding use cases to justify like what type of features we need to make it more approachable for different type of community members. And then it goes into like the other reason why Cosmo Wasm excites me is a lot of these things also become a lot about traceability and how these people can show whatever work they did to different people or NGOs, and sometimes they do not have the infrastructure to do that. But like a little mix of that's what I love Cosmowasm, like a little mix of that with the data module that Regen Ledger already has, and because from Cosmowasm and from DAO DAO we can execute SDK transactions, uh, the possibility expands to the ability of they using the data module to track the type of data they're trying to show, and it doesn't necessarily need to be immediately related to a credit. But there's also these other things that I think Juanca, who is here, if you don't mind adding him as a speaker, can mention, because we were talking about it not too long ago, uh, uh, regarding specifically regarding DAO DAO and how we can use it. So I don't know if it's possible, Sam or Gregory.
Yeah, I just invited Fonka up to speak, so hopefully that goes through. Um, it's always a little bit sketchy, but when he does come up, we can pass it over. Um, you know, in the meantime, maybe I know it's always a little bit disjointed. In terms of conversation, but maybe we can weave back to get some of up. There we go. There's Wonka. Welcome up.
Yeah, thanks for putting me on the spot, Jeancarlo. Yeah, I mean, I think that, yeah, as Jeancarlo was saying, I mean, we talked to a lot of people on the possibilities that this kind of thing can enable. I think at different scales for different kinds of actors, but in particular, just kind of at its lowest level of allowing for traceability, particularly in the complex evolution of value chains, how they're going, how value is created, how risk is distributed, and how financial mechanisms can maintain data sets that can enable better decision making, and over that scale and continuum of time, value, risk, and capital, how it also can support livelihoods, really.
This space was downloaded via spacesdown.com. Visit to download your spaces today.
So yeah, I mean, we've had a lot of conversations with farmers on the ground in particular who are struggling with how to better represent their work, how to better represent the evolution of the work that they've done, and how to make that ecological outcomes and those ecological progresses translate into something more than just stories. But then also, I think for governments, for intermediary institutions as well, trying to better link data sets overall, and how to do that from a place-based perspective. I think bioregionalism is one that's talked a lot, and has gained a lot of traction in regard to how to represent how the evolution of territories is going, but doing that in a traceable and long-term perspective with real integration of the different data sets and also the different perspectives from the communities and the farmers on the ground is still a challenge. So thinking about how we can evolve to onboard a lot of these actors and start piloting and testing and providing cases of how that can be done. I know that a lot of that is already ongoing with like BioFi and a lot of the work that they're doing with the Amazon headwaters. But then also thinking about how to expand those use cases. So yeah, I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, just to echo a little bit what Juanca is talking about. One of the things we were just having a weekly coordination call with Regen Foundation, which for a couple of years has been running, including with the BioFi project, this governance invitation program called the Community Staking Endowment, which many people will probably be familiar. And just there's a whole queue of grassroots or regional landscape scale organizations doing this type of work, which have been waiting for DAO DAO deployments in order to start getting more engaged both with their own sort of endogenous internal governance processes, which I think is what Jeancarlo and Juanca are both speaking towards, but also to exercise governance over and with Regen Network in setting market rules and thinking about kind of like our public infrastructure and how it gets used. So the increase in usability with the interfaces that DAO DAO already has, as well as the extensibility of CosmWasm and DAO DAO itself to be able to extend into these other domains and just have a much shorter cycle to build custom tooling that specific people need has been sort of a long time need that is now coming to fruition. So I couldn't be more excited about that. It's really, really exciting. And I'll kind of also add that DAO DAO and CosmWasm are both in terms of developer potential have some really interesting applications as well in integrating into large language models and AI agents. And I think Jeancarlo was mentioning sort of supply chain tracking and data management. That also, I think, really leads us towards a massive increase in our capability of ecological oracle integration. All of these things have been possible. I think it's interesting just to sort of like anchor this. All of these things have been possible with the existing functionality. It's just been very hard because a lot of that is buried down all the way at the ledger level. You may need to do an upgrade in order to access new features and functionalities. And now with CosmWasm having this smart contracting framework, virtual machine on Regen Ledger, I think we're going to see a really rapid increase of the community's ability to iterate more swiftly and build tools that are immediately meaningful for communities.
Yeah, just to add a little bit, essentially to expand on the point that Gregory said is the CosmWasm is like a great change because anybody can, it's essentially a contract, and the contract is a program, so anything that can be created on a blockchain can be created here. And the life cycle is, if it's permission just a proposal, is no longer a full chain upgrade. So anybody who wants to add or increase the like Regis ecosystem, it will just require like writing a contract and getting it approved through the community, and that the release cycle becomes incredibly short. And it's one of the, as an engineer, I think is one of the nicest user experience for contracts that I have used too. So like anybody who wants to build something in Regen now, they can leverage what already exists. They have access to everything, and they can expand it and connect it to other systems. Um, yeah, like an MCP, I think is something also we're talking in the community to add an MCP for Regen, so people can use LLMs directly with Regen. But we'll talk more about that if you guys want to talk about it in more like the builder communities. But yeah.
Well, I'd love to hear more about that, and I'd also love to hear, Jeancarlo, a little bit more about your perspective, just as someone who has worked across multiple smart contracting frameworks and has been involved in designing and building out Agoric's smart contracting framework. Just like maybe give us a sketch of pros and cons as a developer of these different virtual machines that are available, and what you're thinking moving forward. I know there's been a lot of conversation about EVM, Ethereum Virtual Machine, maybe in tandem alongside CosmWasm or instead of in the future, or what have you. Anyway, I'd just love to hear a little bit of just your perspectives around the role of virtual machines, some of the pros and cons, and why ultimately, kind of we've decided to start with CosmWasm. Um, because of its sort of native IBC and Cosmos SDK integrations. So if you don't mind, just kind of give us a little tour of the state of blockchain virtual machines from your perspective.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So, first is like I guess the importance of a VM. Like the main reason why we have a VM is like in blockchain, there's two levels or of abstraction or of development. The lowest level is what you probably have heard before, that is like protocol engineers or people who develop protocol, and that would be like protocol programming. That's the work that is done on top of the SDK itself. And we need that context to understand the value of VMs. Is protocol is complicated. Like touching protocol requires a lot of security concerns to be revised, and every time we change is a consensus level change, which translates in practice to we all have to agree as validators to run a new binary, and that makes development a bit more slow and not as dynamic, and it's harder to collaborate as a larger, broader community in it, because everybody has to kind of agree on what's the final binary, and that being part of the protocol is an essential security concern to be sure what we are pushing. While VMs, what they solve is the ability to bring custom computation or custom programs into a blockchain that already exists without affecting kind of like the consensus problems or constraints, utilizing whatever exists on protocol, to leverage whatever exists on protocol, but at the same time build something custom and at a faster speed, and also more community driven, in the sense that different people can be building different things that they can interact or not interact with one another. So a VM is something we necessarily needed to have a more active engineering community, and also to truly expand the possibilities of what Regen can do. But then is like the question is what type of VM, and uh, essentially like the main VMs right now are, at least in the Cosmos community, is Cosmo Wasm and EVM. And there's other things like Rust in Sui, that is its own program, Rust in Solana, its own language, I meant, sorry, Rust in Solana, and different uh, languages or ways to solve smart contracts. But at the end of the day, they all do the same thing, which is just execute custom computation. The problem is how they go about it. And what what I like about Cosmo Wasm is first is fully integrated with the Cosmos SDK and is fully IBC enabled. And IBC is still the most proven protocol to do interchain communication. Is very straightforward. You can call almost natively actions in other chains. And it has a lot of nice abstractions like interchain accounts and things of that sort, where we people don't need to necessarily just build on Regen. Regen could communicate with multiple chains and just orchestrate actions from Regen, but they don't necessarily need to be being executed on them. EVM is the other good choice. EVM has the advantage of having the larger developer community. Like if people are looking for an engineer, probably is a higher probability that most people they will find are Solidity developers, and which is the language for the EVM. The problem with EVM right now, I would say, is it's not as mature in Cosmos. We don't have full support right now for all the features we may want, but but it seems like Skip or like the Internship Foundation is pushing to have like a fully working EVM right now, and again, the advantage for EVM is easier to get developers. As an engineer, I feel it's a little bit easier to make mistakes in that stack. It is Cosmo Wasm is truly elegant. The way they design Cosmo Wasm, in my opinion, is if it had a lot of more marketing, it probably would be much more popular. Uh, because I find it like probably one of the nicest solutions for it. And right now we are discussing the opportunity to maybe run both. I'm still validating how if they present any issues with interpolability between them. I know that there's a couple like this one project that is removing Cosmo Wasm for DVM, especially because it has a broader developer kind of pool. However, I haven't been able to contact them to see if there's any technical issues to just run both. Uh,
Which
but
which
essentially,
project
Cosmo
which project was that, JC?
CSEI, the one is also Cosmos based and it's not as known as a Cosmos project, but it runs on top of the SDK. And it's the one that came up with optimistic execution. So parallelization might be something they really care about. That they may have had problems with Cosmo Awesome. I'm not sure. That's my theory. But other than that, they are a very large, promising project. Um, and they just publish a PEI or like a proposal where they are removing Cosmo Wasm for EVM, and the main reason is community DevX experience. But there's nothing specific other than that, or like the conversation. I cannot find public conversations nor contact anybody to get inside information about why the case is, but it's worth looking into. Uh, but I immediately don't see any reason why they both cannot exist with one another because they both are deterministic VMs that just execute a transaction and they both connect to like the SDK storage. So they should be independent from one another, but we need to double check that. But the biggest thing we have with Cosmo Wasm is the fact that we already have a lot of stuff built on top of it, like DAO DAO, or a lot of immediate functionality that aligns really well with a lot of region community members' needs. Uh, but we can keep exploring it and see the idea of pushing probably also having EVM for builders in region. I'm definitely want that and I'm like researching how to make it possible. But both are like amazing good solutions. Both will get the work done. And again, like if at any point people have issues because Cosmowasm might not be, like not as many developers solidity, we can help each other as a community to build whatever anybody needs here.
And maybe this is a good segue to just start talking about, the other upgrade that we've been talking about, which is the, 0.50 or 0.53 upgrade, which in some ways addresses, pieces of what you're speaking to, Jeancarlo, around EVM compatibility, more from the element of just connecting with the broader EVM space in terms of. Yeah, and so I was wondering
Yeah,
if you
you're
could
right.
talk about that a little bit.
That one's also, yeah, that's the reason why there like I have a branch that we can talk later of our biggest interest as community to push for 5.0 is 5.0 opens IBC Eureka, and IBC Eureka is really a game changer. I think that was like a great work done by the IBC team and by Skip. Is it opens the whole EVM ecosystem like it to Cosmos based chains, and they work out of the box, and the experience is like a normally ABC transaction. And what we're talking about is, I think the future. I don't know if you have heard the concept of chain abstraction or s- or or those type of concepts. But what really opens is the ability to execute transactions on Ethereum or anything that is built on top of Ethereum from Cosmos based chains. So it's like a really good work of interpolability between them, and that allows region to easily consume, orchestrate uh, any functionality that has been built on top of EVM based chains. um, and and essentially there's no need to technically run an EVM contract in region anymore. Like you can easily run it somewhere else and then just intercommunicate, or run the EVM in region and communicate to an EVM somewhere else. It just makes, if anybody's familiar with experience with Cosmos chains, how well they interact with one another, it just opens that to the EVM world. So we will get that at upgrade 5.0 is when we start get compatibility with IBC Eureka. I don't know if people want more detail on that, because it's actually very expansive, but also very, very powerful.
Yeah, I mean, I think talking about some of the, the use cases that, this really unlocks, would be something that's, interesting to ground this conversation. And, just some things off the top of my head. I know that there's, 1C was talking about just data indexing, across all of these different initiatives. Obviously, Ethereum attestation service is really big in the Ethereum ecosystem right now, which has some overlap, but functions a little bit differently than the data module, in that it allows you to string together the workflows of validation and attestations you'd want to see. It doesn't necessarily index data, but I think that to me seems like a really interesting immediate use case for people working on refi projects, and want to kind of use that functionality while operating on Regen Ledger and using some of those functionalities. I'm also thinking about groups like EcoToken and EcoBridge that are currently using Squid Router, and how this 0.550 or 0.53 upgrade would really just help improve that experience by reducing the number of transactions to bridge assets. So curious, Gregory or Jeancarlo, if there are other things that you're excited about in use cases, thinking about, the types of, functionalities in community expansion that 0.50 would unlock.
Or probably 0.53. I mean, I think with IBC Eureka, having that cross-chain composability be unlocked so that we can start specifically to integrate some of the more adopted things like Ethereum, both naming service and attestation service, and hypercerts, and the sort of like branch of use of hypercerts that people are calling ecocerts, is really exciting. It also opens up a bunch of cross-chain governance, where people could be governing and engaging with, like you could have a DAO that lives on Ethereum that is, via IBC accessing, a eco credit class, and et cetera, et cetera. So it really, I think for a long time we've sort of been on our own island doing development work and have real adoption with project developers and communities, but we haven't been able to leverage kind of composability, extensibility, and liquidity and in the Ethereum world, which is really where the bulk of regenerative finance activity is taking place, and where there's lots of teams doing amazing innovative work, frankly, that we would like to be able to interoperate with, build upon, and contribute to really just accelerate the usability of the tools, so that users, when they come to engage with Regen Network, with Regen Registry, with Regen projects, the marketplace can engage. So I think it's going to start to unlock composability with Gitcoin and quadratic funding and hypercerts and beyond. And I think that's what has me most excited, and why I'm super excited that already we're starting to lean into that next upgrade, because I think it sort of dissolves a lot of the usability challenges and interoperability challenges that we've struggled with, and shifts that into just an ease of use and deployment and interoperability, which is really exciting.
Great, Jeancarlo, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, like I think like what Gregory mentioned is exactly the case. I also like to think of Region being like a 5.0 chain and with access to all like a whole new ecosystem that is Ethereum. It be like as an engineer, it excites me because and I really hope more engineers see it or with the ability to communicate that we can easily orchestrate a lot of we can easily orchestrate a lot of actions, and we can use region as a place where we can start orchestrating different utilities throughout the different ecosystems that we are connected to, and like building on top of that. So it's essentially what I was saying earlier, like with Cosmo Wasm we can leverage the data module, we can leverage like all the things region has already built it. With IBC Eureka we can leverage the things that have been built in all the Ethereum ecosystem plus the Cosmos ecosystem plus region. So it becomes a very nice place that with a really expansive amount of tools that people can consume and use and interpolate with. So that's what I think like it can really allow to create very large projects or application.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's very exciting, and I think I think along with these upgrades, there's a huge amount of work also taking place in reassessing token economics. There's sort of like a number of different interdependent lines of development, engagement, and inquiry taking place right now, and yeah, it's an exciting moment in terms of just a leap forward in usability, and I kind of am holding this image of a whole little ecosystem of regen AI agents that can orchestrate the regenerative economy across the entire Web3 universe and beyond, starting to populate, take actions, and translate digital interactions in the blockchain world into real world regeneration and uplift of ecosystem health. So it's an exciting moment, and I think with that is probably a good moment to wrap up just a little bit early. Give everybody back a few minutes of their day. I know folks on the Regen network development side of things, we've got a lot of irons in the fire, and Jeancarlo, I'm sure you're busy with a lot of things. So yeah, just super grateful for everybody's time and attention, and yeah, look forward to jamming again next week and seeing people in the meantime out on the interwebs. So thank you all.
Great, thanks guys. And again, big shout out to Jeancarlo for all the work on this. It's a huge milestone. We're super appreciative.
All right, cheers everybody.
This space was downloaded via spacesdown.com. Visit to download your spaces today.